about files. Our programs that we've been working with are C++ programs. Let's look at one, tic-tac-toe. This is a text file. Text file just means that all it is letters, characters, text. Okay, so let's contrast that with if you have a Microsoft Word document. All right, here's a Word document, and I can type text as well. But now I can put extra things like color and different fonts and sizes, and I could put pictures and tables and whatever. Okay, so all of that is not text, that's extra information. And when we're talking about files, we're dealing with text files. The simplest, so let's do file write. Your hello world of files. There's two different things you could do. One would be read from a file, and another would be write to a file. Either way, you need to include ifstream. So all you're doing here is the program itself is opening up a file. So for example, this tic-tac-toe program. When we open Emacs or Pico or Notepad or Word and we open this up, it's reading that information off the computer and displaying it on the screen for us. Now we want our programs to read information off of files also, and write information to files as well. To write to a file, you need to open the file, and the way you do that in C++ is you have an output file stream variable. You need to give a name to the variable, call it something, OF for out file, and then in parentheses you put a string that is the name of the file. So I could call it hello.txt. Eventually I will close the file, which is like that, and then in between I just use OF instead of cout. So normally if I wanted to say hello world, I would say hello world. Okay, that is your first program sometimes. Now instead of cout, you can put OF there and it'll write all that information into the hello.txt file. You could put tons of stuff instead of cout. Okay, there's no output on my screen because in my file write I don't have any couts. I just have this OF. Now I could look, if I look at my files, there's one called hello.txt, and if I look at it, it's hello world. Okay, and you could look at that in Notepad or Pico or whatever you want. So all you need to know about writing to files is you have to include ifstream. You make a variable that's an OF stream variable, put some name for it, you can pick the name, and then in parentheses you have the name of the file, and after that you just use it instead of cout. Anytime you want to write to the file, you use it like cout, but then you have the name of the file there. Now, what about reading from a file? We'll call this file read. Okay, now to read from a file, it's a similar kind of thing as writing, but instead of an output, we have an input. This is the one where we're going to read from some file. Let's read from that hello. I'll call the variable if for input file. We'll read from the hello.txt. Eventually we're going to close it, which is the same. Now normally if we wanted to read in from the user, we would do cin, and then we could say something like this. All right. When we put a cin, the program starts waiting for the user to type something. Now instead of cin, we can put our if there. We use it just like we use cin. It has the same double greater thans, and you can read into a string, you could read into numbers, whatever. Oh, I can't call it if. We'll call it ifile. If it was reserved word, all right. There we go. We pound include ifstream. We have an input file stream. We have some name for it. This is what the name is actually called to Linux or Windows or whatever. And then we use it just like cin. We're reading from the file. So this should read the hello world and output that. And the way cin works, it always stops a string at white space. So we could read in, we could do this whole thing twice. Okay, so we'll read the hello and then we'll read the world. Okay, so all you need to know about inputting from files is you're using it just like cin. That's it. Let's take one of our programs. Let's take our tic-tac-toe. First, let's run this. Let's see. Tic-tac-toe was here. Looks like we called the program T. Just to remember how it works. Alright, so we're supposed to put a 1, a 2, a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It was letting us take 10 turns. It's not complete. It was just replacing those in the board. All right, now if I wanted to take, I could take a file to give these numbers instead of reading it from the screen. All right, so where is that cin? So the only cin is right there. And if I wanted it to read from a file, I could read it from, say, a game history file. So what I could do is, let's say here, okay, looks like my Emacs is messed up. All right, I'll give them the choice. And if they say yes, then I'll say from file equals true, else from file equals false. Alright, and then I'll pass that into my take turn. So I'll change my take turn. Let me just change the rest of those. Okay, so anytime I take a turn, I'm going to tell them whether I'm going to read it from file or from the screen. And that's just right here. Okay, what we need to do is replace this cin by a, so if it's not from a file, then we would just do it like normal. If we're supposed to be reading from a file, then we need to have a file. And where would we get a file from? Let's do it here. We have an input file stream. Let's call it history. Okay, and we could open that already right here by saying something like history.txt, or we can put the semicolon and then open it here instead. So I'll just open it here if they decide they want to play from history. So I'll say history.open, I'll say game history.txt. Now we need to make a file like that. Game history.txt. And for a full game, it's going to be expecting 10 numbers. Let's just do it like that. Alright, now we're also going to have to put that in to the take turn. The take turn will have to get the file that we're using. And when we're done with the file, we have to close it. So let's put that in here on our take turn. Okay, so we're going to pass that file in. That's of type ifstream, call it H. And then we use the H just like cin. Right, if we're supposed to read from the file, then H is our file. Let's see if that works. Okay, so I get this error here that says it doesn't know about ifstream. H has incomplete type, but if I go and look where H is defined here, the error it's complaining about is this ifstream because I forgot to go up and pound include ifstream. If you get an error like this, it could be because you didn't do the right pound include. Alright, now we get some different errors. Okay, and that error actually, I'm not going to tell you why, but you need an ampersand here, which does not mean the memory address of, it means pass that variable by reference. Alright, you're not going to be doing this on the test, but that takes care of that error. And let's just run this thing. Now remember what we did here. It's going to ask us if we want to play from file or not. If we say no, this from file is going to be false. Then up in this take turn, the from file will be false, and it'll just do cin like normal. That's if we say no. If we say yes, it's always going to read from this file instead. So let's say yes. And you see all the printing. It printed out the game just as if we had typed in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 every time it asked, where do you want the next X? So at that point, it read from the file instead of letting us type. If we wanted to, we could also redirect the output. Instead of printing to the screen, we could print to a file, and then it would look like nothing is happening. Alright, I think that's enough for files. Remember that they're just text files. And it's just like cin and cout, except you need to remember to open the file, pound include ifstream, and close the file. Okay, and then if you're reading it from a file, it's an ifstream, and you use it instead of cin. If you're wanting to save into a file, it's an ofstream, use it instead of cout.